On your power play, it seems like there's some success because there's different ways you guys have been scoring. How much of a connection do you see between those two things? Between having guys in front redirect pucks, having good movement, being direct off a face-off, being dangerous in multiple areas. How big is that towards what you're seeing in the production side?
Well, a couple of things with that. First of all, we watched a lot of tape on Michigan's power play, and that's one thing that I think makes them unpredictable. And there's not one thing that they go to. They take what penalty killing teams give them, or what they create through puck movement or movement of bodies. And that has been why our power play's been successful, I think, because it's not one-dimensional. Early in the year, Quinn was getting a lot of looks from the flank, and teams were like, okay, we're not going to allow that to happen. And you need to have other options and then guys that can go out and make plays. And if you looked at this last weekend, that's kind of what happened. We did a good job on initial face-offs of being able to not have to go 200 feet, break it out, get it in, and then having a little bit of an attack mentality once we broke somebody down. And so those guys have done, they're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones that are putting in the work. You look at, I'll give you an example, a guy like Gavin Morrissey, who coming into the weekend, wasn't exactly filling up the net, but he was doing a lot of other really good things to allow others to. And one thing that he's been working on as of late is just being more aggressive with the puck and shooting pucks. And the one-time puck that he finished, that didn't stick to the tape anywhere else because it hasn't happened before. So those guys have done a really good job at sharing the responsibility in the zone and then just being hockey players.
With Gavin especially, is it a matter of, when you're not scoring, is it sometimes, are you putting yourself in position to score? Are you being there? Are you putting the effort, or is it something else for him to get to that, connect that last dot there?
I think he's getting lonely. He hadn't scored a goal, and I think he had an outstanding weekend. He had a really good weekend against Minnesota. It's hard to be good every single day, and that's something all these guys are chasing. They're trying to get to that consistency level so that their game is as good as it can be. And sometimes you have to go through the process of figuring out what's missing. And he looked at his numbers, and his shots on net weren't what he wanted them to be, and I think that really clicked for him. And maybe it helped with Fitzgerald previous to that, sitting up here in the seat that I'm in and talking about having a little bit more of a shot mentality. And I think he's got 8, and we're all in a copycat business. So are players when they see guys that are shooting pucks and they're going in the back of the net, and that's something that they're not doing. I give Gavin Morrissey a lot of credit because he's a bright kid. And so to see that go back, and you can't give that as a coach, you can't give that as a line mate. He's got to go do it, and he did.
You've played some really tight games with Ohio State the last few years. I mean, regular season playoffs, everything. What are the difference makers for your team in games like that? Because you're starting to turn around when games get close. There's a difference to be made, and you guys have done that more often than not so far this year.
Yeah, on Friday I thought we were on the other side of that, where we'd fought back and were able to have a lead in under 10 minutes, and then that one evaporated. And so we've talked about that and learned from it and took responsibility for it. And then on the flip side, they were able to get off to a good start on Saturday and extend a lead. Ohio State's well coached. They're hard. And what I mean by that is their whole group buys into defending. They've got a really good goaltender, big kid, that's had success in this league. And they're going to be a tough out for anybody. I watched the 2 games that they played against Penn State, and they had leads. They were 1-goal games, and that's just what it's going to be with Ohio State, because they're going to come in and they're not going to beat themselves. They don't turn over a lot of pucks. They try and force you into turning over pucks, and if you don't buy into being able to do the hard, you can help create their offense, and there's nobody in our league that we need to help create offense because they all can.
Hey, Coach, you've been able to keep on moving up in the rankings in the ladder the first couple months of the season. Is that something you pay attention to in depth, and what separates a team from being able to do that throughout the season versus just in certain periods of the year?
Well, those are, and I mean this with all the respect that it should be given, they're opinion polls. They're people's opinions. The one thing that we're trying to focus on, and we'll continue, and the guys have done a really good job of it, is just what they're doing today, because it's what's within their grasp, it's what they control, and then what they do when they walk out of this building to accomplish the rest of their day, whether that's what they have to do academically or some responsibilities for relationships that they have outside the rink, and making sure that they're managing that as best they can so they can get up and continue to progress in all three aspects. So our group's done a really good job at not paying attention to things that we don't control. We appreciate it. We feel we're a good hockey team, but we also know that you need to go out and earn it every day, because if you don't, that progress stalls and it can go away. And our leadership group has done a really good job at keeping the group as a whole focused on what we get to control. And that's really what we're doing. We're putting together a book of business right now that you get judged on at the end of the year on if you get to go to the NCAA tournament. And that seems like from Earth to Pluto right now. It's that far away. So really, the guys have done a good job at just focusing on what we're doing on our dailies, and they've done a good job of that this week.
How big was it for Hauser to come back Saturday with the performance that he did after Friday? You know, everyone saw what happened with the turnover, and I'm sure he, kind of owned that for a while. But I guess how big was that, and how, did he have to come in and say, look, I want this again. Don't even think about going a different direction.
Well, for a coach, it was it's kind of a prove it moment. Teammates. Most importantly to himself, that, and I'd be lying to you right now if I didn't tell you there was a thought of, okay, is this when Eli needs to get his opportunity? I guarantee you Eli was thinking that in a good way, because everybody wants to play, and he's put in a lot of work. And so for him to answer that the way that he did, for the game to go the way that it really transpired in the third period, where it got a little physical. It was something that I think he grew from, because he went right back in there. And you and I have talked about this a few different times, especially when you're on the road in a building like that. If you can get a couple of the saves that he made that he probably shouldn't have made, it just stops those fans from getting into that the way that they would, or momentum going to the other side. Like we talked on Friday night with momentum, we couldn't hold on to it. And on Saturday we did. And I think he had a lot to do with that.
I wonder if I could just get your thoughts on what you've seen out of the Big Ten so far in these couple of weeks of conference games. I know you look at big picture, they're two of how they've done in non-conference, but anything surprising you? Are you seeing kind of what you figured this was the gauntlet this was going to be playing out?
I believe it's going to be, and I've only been here a couple of years in the league, but from top to bottom, I think it's the deepest that I've seen just in my short time here. And again, if you're not, I've said this before, but if you're not ready and you're not good, you can get embarrassed, because the players on the other bench, the coaching staffs throughout the league, they're well prepared. And I think it's a great brand of hockey to be a part of, because when you face a team like we did on Friday and Saturday, like we're going to do this Friday and Saturday, it makes you better, because it pushes and exposes your weaknesses. And when you can do that, I think it's good for our league. But it's as deep and as difficult as a league to play in that I've been a part of in the short time here.